This is the last record we have of Nietzsche before his death. These images were captured in 1899, but his descent into madness began a decade earlier. Nietzsche had already been showing signs of mental instability, and his nervous breakdown occurred on the streets of Turin. One day, while walking, he witnessed a man mercilessly whipping his horse, which refused to work. Nietzsche ran towards the animal, embracing it while weeping profusely. Shortly after, he collapsed. When Nietzsche regained consciousness in a psychiatric hospital, his family discovered that he was no longer the same person. This was his last lucid act. For the next 10 years, Nietzsche spiraled into deep madness, a condition that doctors at the time struggled to understand. Some called it syphilis, others cerebral softening, while some believed Nietzsche was paying the price for his own philosophy. As he said, "When you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." After extensive research, accounts from the time, and various theories heard, I pieced together this complex puzzle to try to understand, why did Nietzsche go mad? And what can we learn from his story? Today, we will find out. To understand the possible cause of Nietzsche's madness, we need to examine what doctors recorded on the rare occasions he was hospitalized. In my research, I found 2 key reports, but there's a challenge. They are from the 1800s and written in Old German. The first, from 1889, was written after the incident with the horse in Turin. The second, from a year later, in Jena. In both documents, the doctors agreed that Nietzsche suffered from syphilitic organic psychosis. This leads us to the first possibility that may have caused his madness: syphilis. This hypothesis is often mentioned as untreated syphilis can lead to severe dementia. However, how could Nietzsche have contracted such a disease? There are 2 main possibilities. The first is a report that Nietzsche supposedly visited a brothel. However, according to him, he did nothing there but play a few chords on a piano. We can dismiss this possibility. The second possibility relates to his time in the military. Sexually transmitted diseases have always been a threat to soldiers throughout history. According to the Journal of Military and Veterans Health, STDs during World War I were the second most common cause of disability and absence from service. However, these diseases were not transmitted in the way many imagine. Most of the time, soldiers were infected through contact with contaminated blood or needles. Here we face 2 issues. First, Nietzsche spent very little time in the army. Second, the historical records of that time are not entirely reliable. Interestingly, the medical concept of syphilis was only fully understood after his death. The doctors who diagnosed Nietzsche were still in the early stages of understanding the disease. For example, they did not know that it is rare for someone with untreated conditions to live for 12 years after symptoms appear, exactly Nietzsche's case. Thus, modern medicine considers it unlikely that syphilis was the cause of his madness. So, let's leave this possibility and test another theory: his genetics. Another possibility is that the symptoms diagnosed in Nietzsche could derive from a hereditary disease. Although there are not many detailed historical records of Nietzsche's family before him, analyzing his family tree, one name stands out: Carl Ludwig Nietzsche, his father, who died at just 36 years old due to a brain problem. The exact cause of his premature death remains a mystery, but we know that nearly all of Nietzsche's paternal family suffered from some mental disorder. His mother, Franziska, reported instances when his father, while preaching at church, would abruptly stop speaking in the middle of a sermon and become paralyzed until someone awakened him. When he consulted a doctor, Nietzsche's father was diagnosed with cerebral softening. Pause for information that Nietzsche's father was a pastor. The world is ironic. Modern research suggests that what they called cerebral softening may be related to CADASIL, a genetic disease that affects the brain's blood vessels, causing strokes and dementia. CADASIL is an acronym for a long and complex medical condition that has been linked to cognitive and physical problems that coincide with what Nietzsche and his father experienced. This disease is rare and hereditary, meaning it can be passed from father to son. The symptoms described in the lives of Nietzsche and his father, such as temporary paralysis and memory lapses, are consistent with this condition. Moreover, codicil may explain the cognitive difficulties and emotional challenges Nietzsche faced, which sometimes transpire in his philosophy and writings, like Nietzsche's superiority complex. Studies indicate that 20% to 41% of codicil cases are also characterized by psychiatric disorders, leading to personality disorders and substance abuse. These two aspects are extremely present in Nietzsche's life and work. Much of his books were written under the influence of hashish, a resin extracted from marijuana, and he also misused chloral to try to sleep. Additionally, reports of Nietzsche's eccentric behavior and outbursts can be seen as manifestations of the effects of codicil. This condition could have amplified his personality traits and philosophical crises, leading to a cycle of extreme self-examination and introspection, hallmarks of his philosophy. Thus, while genetics may not be the sole answer to Nietzsche's madness, it certainly provides a plausible explanation consistent with the symptoms he and his father exhibited. As genetics provides a lens through which we can understand some of the challenges faced by Nietzsche, his own intellectual journey also played a critical role. Nietzsche's relentless pursuit of knowledge and his attempt to unravel the deepest mysteries of existence not only shaped his philosophy, but may also have imposed a tremendous burden on his mental health. Exploring Nietzsche's life further, we find that his extraordinary literary productivity coincided with his use of substances like hashish and chloral, along with a pattern of behaviors reflecting his personality disorders. These elements are evident in his works, particularly during his time in Turin, where he penned some of his most insightful and provocative analyses. Before the famous incident with the horse, marking his mental breakdown, Nietzsche already showed signs of severe psychological deterioration. In Ecce Homo, his references to himself as the Antichrist and the Crucified illustrate an intense struggle with his identity and purpose. His writings from this period, laden with introspection and creativity, may have been influenced by codicil, as suggested by a study titled Friedrich Nietzsche and His Illness, a neurophilosophical approach to introspection. This research argues that the disease could alter the brain's reward networks, enhancing his capacity for introspection and creative expression. In a letter to a friend, Nietzsche wrote, "Now is my great harvest season." This harvest season obviously refers to his prolific output of books. It was in this city that Nietzsche wrote three of his most iconic works: Twilight of the Idols, The Antichrist, and Ecce Homo. While some may assume that Nietzsche's mental disorders helped him creatively, the reality is quite the opposite. According to the director of the psychiatric hospital where the philosopher was admitted, the energy that Nietzsche channeled into his work overwhelmed his nervous system, resulting in his mental breakdown. Nietzsche was aware of this risk. After spending much of his life suffering from health problems, he wrote, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." However, this hypothesis still presents some controversies. For example, a scientific paper concluded that a cognitively active lifestyle may delay the onset of dementia. It is believed that after his mental collapse in Italy, Nietzsche's dementia progressed uncontrollably. He spent days screaming and singing as loud as he could, in addition to constantly talking to himself in delusions that lasted day and night. After his collapse, Nietzsche's condition deteriorated rapidly. His final years were marked by delusions and almost complete seclusion, a period during which his once brilliant mind was obscured by dementia. The sight of Nietzsche playing the piano naked, lost in a Dionysian delirium, and his tragic last words to his mother, "I am an idiot," highlight the profound tragedy of his struggle. Nietzsche's tragedy not only illuminates the fragility of the human mind in the face of creative and intellectual pressure, but also underscores the importance of balancing intellect and mental health. His writings, while grandiose, carry the weight of a mind constantly in conflict, reminding us of the risks of exploring the depths of introspection without proper care for our health. So, what really drove Nietzsche to madness? Was it syphilis, a genetic disease, or the weight of his own ideas? The answer may never be entirely clear, but what we do know is that his work and his life continue to intrigue and inspire to this day. Nietzsche left us many lessons, but perhaps the most profound is encapsulated in his famous phrase, "When you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." This thought invites us to reflect on the dangers of exploring the depths of one's own mind and the universe. The relentless pursuit of meaning, understanding, and truth can lead us to dark places, both mentally and emotionally. But there is more to Nietzsche's philosophy that we can apply to his own case. He also said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." This frequently quoted phrase speaks to resilience in the face of adversity. However, Nietzsche's life shows us that while adversity can strengthen, it can also destroy if we are not careful. The lesson here is twofold. First, we must have the courage to face our own doubts and fears, diving into the abyss of introspection and the quest for truth. However, we must also be mindful of the limits of this quest. Balance is essential. Nietzsche's genius was not enough to protect him from the depths of his own mind. His story serves as a warning to all of us about the need to take care of our mental health while pursuing our highest goals. Nietzsche's legacy is an invitation for us to explore our own depths, but with awareness of the risks involved. It is a reminder that we must balance our quest for truth with the need to take care of our own sanity and well-being. If we approach the abyss too closely without preparation, we risk being consumed by it. Creating this type of content takes a lot of effort, so if you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider supporting the channel by purchasing some of the items in the link in the pinned comment. Watch this video about Nietzsche's life and learn his entire story. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next video.